There are few people that absolutely flabbergast me by their knowledge and innovation. You're going to hear from her today. It's Stacy Sime. She is the president and CEO of LifeServe Blood Center. We're going to talk about the new building that they built in Johnston. The efficiency, the security, the technology, the advancements in that building are nothing but awesome. Then we're going to talk about her senior workforce, who, by the way, is mostly volunteers. And then we're going to get into the complexity of their supply chain and the challenges that exist when your product depends on people coming in to volunteer to give you the base foundation of that product. It's a fascinating conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It is such a pleasure to have in the studio with me the person I believe is the most technically savvy manufacturing executive in the state. And Stacy, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. That scares me, Leisa.
Let me tell you why I say that. You have a product whose shelf life is super short.
7 days.
7 days. You have a product that is only viable if it's donated by the public, which, by the way, COVID did not help blood donation in the least. Then we take that a step further, and you have to deliver your product to a place where you don't know yet whether it's needed.
It has to be on the shelf before it's needed.
Right?
Right.
We're going to unpack so many things. One of the things we're going to unpack is LifeServe Blood Center recently moved its headquarters from a place in the East Village to Johnston. And Stacy had that coveted opportunity to build a facility exactly the way you wanted it and knew it could best serve your needs. How did that go?
I would tell you we've been in a year and a half. The building is fantastic. Almost everyone you toured last week, and your first comment to me was, it's huge. It's actually 5,000 square feet smaller than the facility we had in the East Village, and I think most people are surprised by that. But when you can design a building to your exact specifications, you actually need less space. And so it has been really life-changing to get into a facility that was designed for us.
Well, we're going to start with the building because it deserves amazing kudos. And then we're going to go into some of your supply chain and employment, just innovations, because you operate this organization in a way that really flips everything on its head. So let's start with the building. I want to start with the efficiency from an energy perspective.
So keep in mind, our building in the East Village, right, was a building that was 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, depending on what part of the building you were talking about. We had an old generator. It was not very efficient. And so when we decided to build this building, the first thing we wanted to do was design this in a way that if energy costs go up, we've set the organization up for future success, which is really critical, right, when you move into a new building. So we made some really hard decisions. We get a lot of people talking about the building design because when you drive by, it's very distinctive because it has that big, it's called a scrim wall on the south side that has those things that look like fins. And those really serve a function on the building. So when the sunlight hits those fins that are not adjustable, by the way, they're always at the same position. The light goes into the building, so it's beautiful and bright inside.
So bright.
And the heat gets deflected out. And so when the whole building was being designed, the price point came back on the scrim wall, and it was $1.5 million. And I'm like, oh my God, we cannot possibly
Scrap it.
put that wall on, right? So the architects and the mechanical engineers were like, well, we think we have to look at the heating and cooling system to see what that would do. Well, if we pulled off the $1.5 million scrim wall, we would have had to add $2.5 million in heating and cooling to the building just to make it level set, not alone.
So that was an equipment,
That was just in equipment. So we saved $1 million to put that wall on. And that doesn't really account for the savings it generates every single day in that building.
Wow, wow, wow. And you also used geothermal and solar. Talk about how you applied that.
So geothermal initially, and that was a challenge because with manufacturing blood products, we have a very narrow range of temperature that our laboratories can sit in. And we have a lot of refrigeration and freezers in our building. So, total of 5 walk-in refrigerators and freezers in that facility. So we are an energy drawer, right?
Guzzler.
We guzzle energy. In our other building, electric heating, cooling was $15,000 to $20,000 a month. We always got the little letter that said we weren't complying with the right energy standards for other office buildings because we weren't an office building. So we did geothermal, but to do geothermal for a building our size of our energy consumption, we needed 120 wells. So that's a lot of wells.
Holy
So we
buckets.
have wells every possible spot on that site. It's a 6-acre site. They are all over. They're under the parking lot. Anywhere around the building they can be. But what it does is it has dropped our heating and cooling costs significantly. So if you remember, $15,000 to $20,000 a month. With our geothermal system only, it's $5,000 or $6,000 a month to heat and cool that building, which is incredible.
And you guys, this is not a small building. How?
About 58,000 square feet. And it's very temperature controlled, right? So in our lab, we have a 4-degree temperature range. It can be 68 to 72, basically. And that's all the variation we allow.
And that's every minute of every day.
Yep, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we don't get to say, hey, it's Sunday, ramp that thing up to 80 degrees. We have to be there all the time. And we're also staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, right? So there's always energy going on. So the second part of that was solar panels. We didn't do that as an initial part of the construction. We made the roof ready for solar. And then just right now, actually today, the last of the solar panels were installed.
Awesome.
We will cut over to solar on December 2nd. And the estimation is on a high usage day, 42% of our energy will come from solar. On a lower day, right, we could be 100%. So if you think about that, we're at 6,000. We can get 50%. It'd be $3,000 for heating, cooling, and electricity for that building, which is incredible.
I know small office buildings that use that much energy.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, right? So it's the scrim wall. It's the type of system we put in. It's the building automation. It's the type of lighting. So really, kudos to our partners. So we worked with Formation Group, B&IM Architecture, Hansen Construction, and lots of other partners. But they really helped think through all of the little tweaks you could do in a building to make it absolutely the most efficient building so that we could really get the return on our investment for making this building.
Not to mention, it's absolutely stinking gorgeous. And the first thing you see, and I encourage everyone to reach out to Stacy for a tour because it is worth every minute that you spend there because there are things to learn in every nook and cranny. But you walk in and you see these gorgeous wooden benches. Number one, they're aesthetically beautiful. But number two, you harvested them from your property.
Right. So one of the challenges we gave our architect and our general contractor was, our mission is we save lives in partnership with the communities we serve. So if we're going to buy this 6-acre site and honor the site, so the site in Johnston, as most people know, is at the corner of Johnston Drive and Merle Hay, and it has been vacant for years. But it used to be a beloved garden center where they kept special trees. And so we're like, okay, we're going to take most of these trees down to put in this big 59,000 square foot building. Is there a way we can honor the site and the people that were on that site before us? So we did two things. If you come to the site, you're going to notice, and they're not necessarily spectacular, but we kept 12 trees. Some of the trees are on the front side right by Merle Hay, and they were trees that were beloved by people in Johnston. Some of them are Kentucky coffee trees. They're these kind of unique varieties. And so people love those trees. So we were able to keep those on the property. But then we went through the property and we identified 29 trees. And of those 29 trees, we then took them, harvested them, took them to a local company called Aronson Woodworks.
Which, by the way, you've got to get me their contact information because I want them on this podcast.
Yeah, they are amazing. If you don't follow them on Instagram, you should absolutely follow this company on Instagram.
I'll put the link in the show notes, yes.
Because they are amazing. A family-run company that's really committed to doing it right. So they harvested these trees for us, took them to their property on Pearl, Iowa, dried them, and then worked with our architect to come up with a design of furniture that could go in the building to kind of support our sustainable mission, right? So if you think about our mission is about sustainability. So then if we can bring trees into the building, it just kind of reinforces the sustainability. So those benches you're talking about come from European birch trees, which are very unique to the United States, probably very few of them in the country. And so we harvested them. They made these benches. The benches are actually hollow inside, so at some point we're going to do a time capsule so the lids pop off, but they are spectacular. When you walk in, they're so eye-catching.
Amazing. And you've got other reclaimed wood throughout the building in tables.
Yeah, we did several, what I'd say, coffee tables. We did a large board table for our boardroom. We did credenzas. And so we used kind of red oak, white oak, and then these European birch trees. And then there's one more set of furniture that will be designed, and that is being designed for what's known as the Gift of Life Garden. So the Gift of Life Garden is right along Merle Hay Road, and we're using a cedar tree that was on the property. And we're making a board table that will sit in that garden that will honor the board the entire lifetime of the organization, which we're 78 years old, right?
Good
so
grief.
A lot of history there. So there'll be a QR code on the table where people can scan it and see everybody who's ever been on our board. So it's very cool.
I love it. All right, let's get from the design to the throughput and the efficiency and lean, the intentional mentality that you used to create this building.
I would say that lean is very much a part of our organization in general. It's not even something that we think we're doing lean initiatives. It's just built into the processes that we use. We've worked with Cirrus before from Iowa State. And really, we wanted to design this building so it was as efficient as possible. So when you were there, you saw that even some things that you wouldn't think of. So when you go through a door, normally you would think the door press to open a door is closest to the door. But because we're an organization that relies on carts, the openers for the doors are on the opposite sides. They're all wave, so you don't have to try and push them. So the entire building, from the way the building lays out to the way the doors lay out to the type of doors we have to just the way flow comes in. One of our biggest challenges has always been we have blood products that are coming back to the organization. At the same time, we have blood products going out of the organization. How do you make sure that those blood products don't get messed up? And now, the blood products coming back to the organization.
Because that was a problem at the old location.
Absolutely was a problem because it was the same spot. The same table had both of those products. So in the new building, we were able to create a system where there's a rolling cart that literally they drop their blood products that are coming back into the organization. They roll right down this cart
conveyor
to our team that needs it. And then there's a special area where blood products that are going out can sit. And it's just so incredibly convenient.
And there's no opportunity for confusion.
There really isn't. No. And we, even to the point, we color code boxes. So we were already using lean. So a red box means a certain thing, a blue box means a certain thing, a green box means a certain thing. But even with that, you still have red boxes coming into the organization and leaving the organization. So by being able to design your facility in a way that allows you to incorporate lean into every aspect of it, we even did that in our lab. As you know, there's not any built-in, I'd say, benches or anything in the lab. Everything's on wheels. All of the power and the data lies below the floor. So we can fully redesign the lab to the equipment that we have. Because every time you get equipment, you have to change that. And it allows us to kind of adjust on a lean manufacturing way to make sure that our flow is exactly the way it should be.
One of the other complexities to your industry is how regulated you are, justifiably so. You have got bloodborne, opportunities for cross-contamination, all sorts of things that could go wrong. You have to be super, super secure. Talk about your security protocols and how much more secure this new building is than the old one.
Yeah, so always one of our challenges in the East Village was it was a building that wasn't really designed thinking about security, right? Because 50, 60, 70 years ago, you didn't think about those kind of things. So in this building, it's designed incredibly well. In fact, you can't get anywhere without an ID badge system. So we're fully computerized and really now have incorporated cameras into everything we do. And I know that sometimes gives people a little bit of a concern, but for us, it's very, very helpful. So we have full security. So the entire building is locked down. So there's a way you have to access the building. There's a way you have to move through the building. So when a visitor comes, they can get to where you would go to donate blood, and you really can't get anywhere else. Even the elevator is locked down, which is amazing. And then there's the full security system as well as the cameras. And so it just makes a big difference, because if you think about being in a 60,000 square foot building by yourself at night, you want to know you're in a secure location. So for us, it wasn't only the right thing to do, but it was the right thing to do for our team members that are working at night alone, because it makes a big difference. Now, I'm not going to lie. The first night we moved in, we did set off the security system, and the Johnston police had to come. So it's not been perfect. We're still getting used to the whole thing, right. but I thought it was good. They were good sports about it when they showed up on our first night in Johnston.
And the thing that impressed me so much is because you were so thoughtful about the security, who could go where, you have been able to automate some processes because of the level of security. Pickups and that kind of thing. They just badge in?
Yep. So before, really, we couldn't have an area where the delivery drivers could go because they'd access the whole building. So in our new building, we have cabs, couriers, volunteers, and our own team that are delivering blood products. And to give perspective of what that means, just last year in our own vehicles, we drove 3 million miles, either having a blood drive, delivering blood, or picking up blood. So we put on a lot of miles, and that doesn't include the couriers, and it doesn't include FedEx, UPS, anything like that. So there is always someone in our building either dropping off or picking up blood products. So now when they pick up blood products, they have their own little room. They can badge in, but they can't access the rest of the facility. If they're dropping off blood products, they can badge in, they can drop it off, but they can't access any other part of the building. So it really does allow us to kind of create a fully secured environment, which is what the public should want, right? This is the blood supply we're talking about. You don't want to think about it not being secure. And so it allows us to be secure. It allows us to provide that safe blood supply that everybody's relying on. And more importantly, ensure that they have access to a safe blood supply.
And let's talk about the experience that you have now in this new building comparatively. I bet your retention on maintaining the donors that you do have is so much higher. It's like a freaking spa in there.
And that was intentional. So I think for most people that donate blood, when you go donate blood, it feels like you're going to the doctor's office, right? And let's face it, if you're like me, you don't love going to the doctor's office. So you want to make it a little bit different. And so this was really the brainchild of our architects, BNIM. And they're like, you need to shift blood donation from a clinic experience to a spa experience. So there's different chairs, there's different snacks, there's different feel. The furniture looks different. The entire layout of the donor center feels different. And it really does feel like a spa, I think, when you walk in. So
undeniably,
yeah.
It is beautiful.
So even if you're scared of needles, right?
Oh, right? If you could just give pedicures while we're donating blood, then we'd solve all the problems of the world.
If that solves the problem, we might have to check into it.
There might be a sanitation issue there. I'm not sure.
It really has worked. So they're about 50% ahead of where we thought. So if their goal was 100, they're collecting 150.
Okay.
So that donor center is doing really well. So now the challenge for us is the rest of our donor centers, of which we have 17 total, how do we get to the point that you recreate that experience in a strip mall, right? It's much different. So we're rolling out the first reimagined donor center in Cedar Falls in first quarter of 2026. We're not going to get the same beautiful view because it's different. You're in a strip mall parking lot. But we are incorporating the wood, the new furniture, the feel. And so I'm very anxious to see if making that twist will just change the experience overall. And then if that continues to work, we'll then roll that concept out into all of our donor centers. And then eventually we'll have to figure out what do we do with a mobile blood drive, because mobile blood drives are about 50% of our collections.
Wow. Let's talk about the need that you're filling across 2 states, right?
5 states.
5 states now. My gosh, Stacy.
Yeah, we're growing.
All right. So tell me what 5 states you're in.
So we are the majority supplier for the state of Iowa. We do about half of the state of Nebraska, half of the state of South Dakota, part of just a couple of hospitals in Minnesota, and a few hospitals in Illinois. So if you think of the states, we go all the way from the Missouri border of Iowa to the North Dakota border of South Dakota. So there are 350 team members spread across all of those locations. We have blood in about 7 different locations, mobile stage from there, have blood collection facilities. The good part about growing is that when we have winter weather, it's not very often that entire region is covered, so we can kind of deal with that. But the challenge is just logistics, right? If you think about our farthest south donor center is Pella, Iowa. Our farthest north is Aberdeen, South Dakota. And how do you logistically move blood products through those environments and then to those hospitals? So it's 170 hospitals that we provide full service. And then there's an additional 27 that we're supplemental to them. What that means is that sometimes they can't get enough blood products from their current supplier and they need additional, and we'll provide that. So in total, it's 197 hospitals in the 5 states.
One of the things that has struck me when I've toured the facilities is the responsibility that you take on with this donated blood and how precious you treat it, because you know that these people voluntarily come in, give of their time, go through a teeny tiny little bit of pain, but you take that precious commodity and move it all over your region to make sure you're optimizing its use.
Right.
Talk about what that looks like, the shelf life, how you shift it from facility to facility, because you're not predicting who's going to need what blood.
Yeah, I mean, what we do, if you think about it, you can tend to predict type of procedures that need a blood product. So if someone's in a car accident or they have cancer, they may need blood products. But every patient that's in a car accident doesn't. Every patient that has cancer doesn't. So we can predict hospital usage based on past trends. So we really use what we call an allocation model. So based on how far the hospital is from where their blood supply is kept, remember we keep it in multiple locations, usually within a 2-hour driving range. So how far are they from their blood supply? And then how much did they use in the last year? And that creates an inventory that they keep on hand.
Wow.
So we think, right, that should be enough to ensure that they have enough blood products for any situation that comes up. But that's not always the case. So I always like to use Perry High School Perry because people can relate to what happened at Perry High School. So the hospital in Perry had a blood supply that was really built on them not using very many blood products. 75% of the hospitals we serve, of those 197 hospitals, use less than 500 blood products a year. So for us, this is a nonstop logistics challenge because you have to take it from the small hospital. Then when it's sat there on their shelf and they didn't use it, then we literally move it to a middle or a large sized hospital to see if it can get used. And then if it doesn't get used there, we find other locations, might be another blood center, because our goal of stewardship is that if you came in and got a needle stuck in your arm, we better find a way to use that blood product. So if you think of Perry Hospital had blood products on their shelf. They weren't really, and our model didn't account for a shooter walking in that door. So the minute we become aware of those situations and the hospitals notify us right away, even before we know what's going on in that situation, we put blood in a car. So we had blood in a car going to the Perry Hospital even before the police had secured the site.
Stacy.
I know, it's incredible if you think of what we do, but that's what you have to do because you don't know. And this kind of leads to the whole blood and ambulance, which a lot of people have started to hear about. But you really need to have blood available right away when they start to bleed. So we had blood already on the way to Perry because we knew there wouldn't be enough there. But most of the time, the hospital in Perry isn't going to use that blood products. But on those unexpected events, they have to have it available. And that's really what our community is counting on, is that they're donating blood, hoping and counting on the fact that when they need a blood product or their loved one needs a blood product, it's there for them.
And the other variable is the type of blood. So not only do you need to get blood there, you have to have the right mix of types.
Right, because there are, if you're O negative, you can only receive O negative blood products. On the flip side, if you're A positive or AB positive, you can get a lot of different types of blood. And so the blood type matters, and we have to think about that all the time.
I can't even fathom it. And you have deployed your people to respond all over the country. You get called a lot on national catastrophes, correct?
Yes. So realistically, what happened is after, people might remember the shooting in Las Vegas several years ago, and that blood supplier who was serving Las Vegas did not have enough blood products, and it made the blood industry realize we need to do better. And so we created an organization, and we weren't one of the creators. There were some other blood centers that did this, called the Blood Emergency Readiness Corps. And so BERC, that's kind of the abbreviation, was formed. And every week in the United States, 14 blood centers are on call. And so when we're on call, we have so many blood products we have to put aside and cannot leave the blood center. They are just waiting in case an emergency happens. So we were one of the blood centers that was on call when the Uvalde shooting happened at the elementary school. So what happens is you get notified, you literally pack that blood product up, you put it in a FedEx truck, and it goes by air right to that location because you can't wait. So this whole concept of you can't wait is really what's driving the whole need for blood on ambulances. So one of the big news stories in the recent weeks is the fact that the Des Moines and West Des Moines EMTs are now carrying blood products. And people have been asking me, well, why would that happen? Well, the reality is, and I think if you listen to this story, you'll see the trauma surgeons from both Mercy and Methodist talk about the fact that they really need blood products immediately. And so the studies show that people that receive blood immediately after a traumatic injury, so if you imagine a car accident or you fell and broke a bone and you're having major bleeding, if they receive it immediately, their 30-day survival rate is significantly higher than if they have to wait, because if they wait, then their body starts to shut down their organs. And so then they're having to deal with that. So the state of Iowa was one of 7 states, or is one of 7 states that does not allow EMTs to transfuse blood. So nicely, the governor's office is allowing the Des Moines and West Des Moines ambulance crew to be able to do a pilot project to show that EMTs can absolutely carry blood products. So they're carrying blood products. And amazingly, the very first day they were carrying blood products, they used a unit.
You're kidding me.
Nope. We were like, oh, they probably won't use them for a month, right? No, very first day they used a blood product.
What a miracle that was.
Right, and it was right there. So it's not every ambulance carries it. It's the supervisor cars have it because they have to keep it refrigerated. Even when it's in the ambulance, it has to be refrigerated because it all kind of matters. So they're only carrying red blood cells. So red blood cells have a life of 42 days from donation.
Okay.
So they can rotate that back through us or the hospital. So we won't really outdate any blood products. So they'll keep it for a few weeks and it'll rotate back in the system.
And it has to be by type too.
In that situation, they're carrying O positive. So any blood type, any person can get an O positive unit. For some people, O negative would be better. But the fact is, we just don't have enough O negative blood supply. I looked, we get a color-coded version of our inventory every single day. And today, our O negative supply was in red, meaning we don't have enough.
So if you are O negative,
go donate.
Get to LifeServe, get to the spa.
That is the hard part, right? It is blood type. And if you're an O negative blood donor with us, literally every day that you're eligible, we're contacting you and asking you to come in.
My gosh. Well, congratulations on that initiative. As I toured the facility, there was something else that you need to be congratulated for, although this is the future. So you made me aware of a technology called whole cell.
Oh, cellular therapy. Yes.
Yes, whole cell therapy. And the acronym TIL is something that we should pay attention to because it's coming.
Yeah, so TIL, or tumor interleukin treatment, is one of the, what I think, and now I'm not a physician. I mean,
Really?
I think if you talk
You're everything
to
else,
physicians,
why not add that?
Yeah, I am so not a physician. So if you're a physician and listening, I apologize. But really, currently, if you have cancer, right, you're treated in one of 2 ways. You get chemotherapy or radiation. And I think almost everybody would tell you both of those treatments are very, very difficult. The future of cancer appears to be moving more cellular based. And this TIL treatment, or tumor interleukin treatment, is one of these, where they actually go into a tumor, they remove some cells, and they can activate the cells and transfuse them back to the patient, and it fights the cancer. But all of these new cancer treatments are going to require a manufacturing step. So if you think about what we do, we manufacture blood products. And that doesn't mean we manufacture them from nothing. It means we take blood from a volunteer blood donor and we manufacture it using basic science principles of centrifugation, gravity, filtration to make the blood products that are actually transfused to the patient. So with cancer treatments, what we believe will happen is that we will become the vehicle for once the cells are removed, we will do the manufacturing steps to make it into a medication, and then it will return to the patient. So as we were building the new building, we decided that we couldn't wait for this to happen and then go, oh, we need to now build some clean rooms so we can manufacture these cells for you. So we decided to make the investment and put 2 clean rooms in this building. Right now, they're like empty, really expensive rooms. We can't even go in them for a meeting, right? You couldn't tour them because they're all pressurized, they're all certified. But we wanted to be ready because when our community says, we need you, we don't want to say we need 6, 12 months to do it. We want to say we're ready, we've got the facilities, and we're ready to go.
And that technology is being delayed a little bit because of national funding, correct?
Right. So a lot of the research funding was done by the National Institutes of Health, and a lot of the NIH grants and other grants to these researchers have been slowed recently. And so we think, originally, I think had we done this a year and a half ago, I would have said, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see us doing something. I think now it's probably 5 to 10 years. I just don't know. I'm not going to say funding will be totally dried up. I think funding sources will reappear. That's always what happens. It's just, where does that come from? But a lot of places have really slowed down on the work to get to this next version of cancer treatment. But I think it's exciting. And I think if you're every single one of us has had an experience with cancer. So I think the ability for us to treat it differently in a way where the treatment doesn't nearly kill you would be a great thing.
I can't wait to see where that leads. And I hope you're wrong that it's 5 to 10 years. I hope that that's sped up a little bit. I want to get to another innovation that you have been utilizing for years, if not decades, and that is using the senior workforce in truly meaningful ways that continues their usefulness really as long as they choose to work, correct?
Yeah, and really, I'm going to say work in quotations because it's a volunteer program. So we have an amazing volunteer coordinator. So we do have a full-time volunteer coordinator, and that's part of, I think, what makes our volunteer program really incredible. But we use volunteers to drive for us. So they're picking up blood, they're delivering blood. I mean, we have a volunteer that every Sunday gets in a car, picks up blood from our location in Johnston, drives it to our location in Omaha, picks up blood from Omaha and brings it back to Johnston.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Volunteer.
Yep. So we have about 162 volunteer drivers. We have other volunteers that do things like pack supplies. They might fold T-shirts. They might do this, but these individuals are a huge part of our workforce in the sense that they really help create the amazing environment that we have because they get to live their mission, they get to have a passion, they get to do amazing things with us, and they really are as invested in saving lives as our team is, which is really, really cool.
Talk about your fleet, Stacy. How many vehicles do you have? Because the volunteers use your cars, correct?
They do use our cars. So our fleet has been about 100 vehicles, and I'm going to credit Iowa State for this. So we actually worked with the logistics team through one of the colleges at Iowa State last fall, and they came in and did a full logistics evaluation for us. I think this is one of the great things that our universities in the state of Iowa will do for us. And they came in, they learned about what we did, and they made recommendations. So one of our challenges has always been, well, our volunteers not only deliver blood, they deliver our supplies. So all of our supplies come into 2 locations. They deliver all of that stuff. Well, it depended what vehicle they had. And so this seems like, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, a no-brainer. They're like, well, why don't you have all of the same size vehicles? So it never mattered what car they had. They could always fit the supplies in. And we're like, well, darn.
Duh.
That's a really smart idea. Glad we had to have the Iowa State
Because
student.
you'd have some idle, right?
Right, and we would have different sizes. So if I'm taking the Rogue, I can only take 4 boxes, where if I'm taking the Voyager, I can take 10. Well, now we're switching all to a certain number of vehicle or a certain type of vehicle. So we've had 100. I think this will shrink us down to about 90 vehicles, but those 90 vehicles in a year put on 3 million miles. So we are heavy users of our vehicles. And it's all over, right? So you have to think it's not just the state of Iowa, but Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Illinois.
That's insane. One of the other conversations I wanted to come back to, when I interviewed you not long after COVID, a few years ago, one of the issues was supply chain, and it was the bags that your blood is kept in, and you could not get enough bags. Talk about how the entire industry has sort of come together to solve that problem.
Yeah, so it's important to note most of our supplies that are used directly in the collection of a blood product. So I say directly because, yes, I know Nutter Butters are really, really important. And if you donate blood, you want the Nutter Butter, right?
Right.
That is not a highly regulated supply. But on the flip side, anything that touches the blood donor, so from the device we use to take your hemoglobin to the blood bag, is highly regulated, FDA approved, and it's just has a level of rigor to it just to have a supply. So there are currently in the United States not a single blood bag manufacturer.
Not one. Not one blood bag manufacturer.
Puerto Rico, which is it's not a state, but it's really kind of part of the United States, they have one blood bag manufacturer there, but the problem in Puerto Rico is power and hurricanes, right? So never good. And if you think back to the pandemic, at the same time, Puerto Rico had been hit by a pretty good hurricane. I can't remember if it was before or after the start of the pandemic. So we were not able to get blood bags. And what we realized across not only LifeServe, but really the whole industry in the United States was we have a problem because we don't have any blood bags being manufactured in the United States. Bringing a blood bag manufacturer into the United States and onshoring would be fantastic. I just don't know that there's a manufacturer that's going to agree to do that because they're going to have to hop through all of the FDA hoops and government hoops to get approved.
Seems like a horrible security issue for the country, but that's beside the point.
That's a whole nother argument, right? Probably another day. So we had to kind of decide what we were going to do. And so what we decided to do is we hired basically an Amazon, but it's not Amazon, a different distributor. And they're now holding 90 days of blood bags for every blood manufacturer or every blood center in the United States. And then we currently also keep 90 days. So that big building on Johnston Drive partly has a 9,000 square foot supply room that has a lot of blood bags in it. And so that's allowed us to get 180 days, which we think will allow us to kind of weather the storm of supply and demand because this is the biggest challenge.
That leads me to our final discussion, which is when we toured, I met Marty and it was a dean.
A dean.
And you hired a dean just recently. I think he'd been there,
I think
month?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, not very long. What a guy, though.
Oh my gosh. Great hire. Where'd you find him?
I'm going to say I have no credit. Kudos go to our HR department and our CFO. They did a great job.
He worked in other logistics firms, both trucking logistics, Amazon. The guy is a logistics savant, and he's literally frothing at the mouth with all of these ideas that he's going to apply to your supply chain there. And again, this is manufacturing 101, right?
Right.
Hire good people, let them do their thing.
It was funny, though, when we were in with Dean and Marty, I don't know if you noticed, behind them, there was a volunteer packing all of our little supplies. So we used volunteers all over. But yeah, I think as we've grown, right, not that long ago, we really only had 2 or 3 locations. So really since 2009 is when our growth started, because in 2009, we added sites in Sioux City, sites in South Dakota. So really 2009 till now, which isn't even 20 years, right? Not very long. We have grown to 16 collection sites, soon 17, all of these mobile locations. And where we've grown really well operationally, Where we haven't grown is in our supply rooms and support services. And I think that's what manufacturers do, right?
Yep.
You grow where you need to manufacture. And then
where you're getting an ROI, right?
Right. And then what you realize a few days later, or weeks or years later, is that, oh, wow, our facilities are not growing with us. Our supply isn't growing with us. Our IT department isn't growing with us. And so all of that is really where we're having to spend time and energy to get those departments to really grow at the same, or catch up really with operations, who's now spread out over those 5 states.
So let's talk about your planned technology upgrades. You're in the midst of one right now.
Yep. So we will, in the next year, literally have upgraded every system in the organization. And this is a planned thing for us. So currently we have what I'm going to call the type of system where your computer system is great, but you have a planned update. So, every 18 months your system gets updated. But in a world where we need to be really responsive to what's going on, that doesn't work anymore. So we decided to move away from what I'm going to call these old men type software that are very reliable, they're predictable, you know exactly what you're going to get. And we're moving to brand new softwares, but they're like your phone software. So they are going to update on a weekly basis.
Wow.
So as you need changes, they're just updating continually. So that's fantastic. The scary part about it is, in full transparency, is these softwares are like toddlers. So they're in their terrible twos and we're still learning. But I think if we compare where we are today, in a year after we've been implemented on where we are with the new software, we'll be far ahead. But every piece of software, from what our donors touch to what our team touches to what our hospital touches to how we do our financials, will change over the course of the next year as we come into what we consider the current computer environment, which really puts us in a world where every software we have will be updating on a weekly basis. It will have AI functions, just all of the things a company needs to have to move into the next version.
Well, I've got to give you kudos. Number one, you're serving such a need in our community, but you're not just checking boxes. You're doing it in a way that is innovating the industry. Talk about where you stand here in Iowa compared to your peers in other states.
So we're blessed in a couple of ways. Let's face it, the people in the Midwest are always, I think, some of the most giving people in the United States. So I think that definitely helps us out as it relates to blood supply and blood donors. But we've been able to do a couple of things. So one of the things that we've done, and this credit goes to our board, is we've created an innovation committee. So the innovation committee is not a management-led committee. It is a committee of supervisor and down in the organization, and they get to decide where we invest money to improve donor experience, improve access to blood and blood products, and educate people regarding the need for blood. So pretty lofty things.
Right.
And they can fund a lot of initiatives. So they have a certain percentage of our reserves that they can spend every year. And so they've funded things like we don't do a finger stick anymore to determine if someone's hemoglobin is okay to donate. So now when you come in, there's a little device that slides on your thumb. And let's face it, the worst part about donating blood for our friends that don't like needles is getting your finger stuck. But we don't do that anymore, right? We slide that on. That was funded by Innovation. Now they're doing a bunch of AI stuff with how we contact donors. And so we've really put ourselves, we're the 15th largest blood center, but in a lot of initiatives, we're in the top 5. So if we think of during COVID with convalescent plasma, we collected the 3rd most in the country. A lot of the other innovative things. So with this software that we're doing, we're the first or the top 5 in moving to these software products. So we really feel like we have to move first and quickly because we think our innovation always drives better products. So we're really trying to create an environment where we're letting innovation thrive. And I've been telling people that I thought the innovation committee was a great idea, but it's only really been, and I'd say in the last year and a half or 2 years, where I've really started to see ideas bubble up. So they're funding a scholarship program. They're funding AI technology to contact donors. We're changing the whole marketing campaign that we're going to be doing for the Blood Center, really targeted to the under 30 group, because I get a lot of advice on how we should contact blood donors, but it usually involves advertising on TV news and NPR, which isn't the group we're looking for. They're doing a pickle juice trial to see if that makes your donor experience better. So they're doing a lot of great things and things that nobody else is doing, which is fun to see.
The challenge that remains is, again, this younger, the Gen Zs, getting them into the blood center.
Yes.
What do you say to them, those that are listening right now that know they should donate, but either can't find the time, don't like that prick? What do you say to them? How important is this to the lives of fellow Iowans?
Well, I think there's some facts that everybody has to keep in mind. By the time we're 90% of us will use blood products.
Wow.
When I'm talking to a group, I always start with who's used blood products. You'll have maybe 10% of the room stand up, but then you ask them to stand up if someone in their family or a friend has used blood products, and easily 90% of the room will stand up. So almost every individual has someone that's relied on a blood product. And there's a lot of misnomers about the blood supply. If you're donating at a paid plasma center, that blood product is not going to the local hospitals. That blood product those companies are owned by large pharmaceuticals. They serve a function, but their function is to take the plasma and move it into pharmaceutical manufacturing, into drug products.
Oh.
So that's not going to the hospital. The only blood products that are going to the hospital in the state of Iowa, in the state of Nebraska, and across the United States are being collected by nonprofit blood centers that are not paying their donors and are really counting on people to stand up. So the challenge is, since the pandemic, that age group under the age of 30, their donation rate has dropped significantly.
Eesh, okay.
So if we would look at, I can easily remember these stats because they were just done. Under the age of 40 comprises only 30% of our blood donors. So think about that.
Yikes.
Right. So 70% of our blood donors are over the age of 30 or 40. Yeah, 40. So if you think about that, as we get older, by nature, we're going to have situations that allow us not to donate blood. So our blood supply right now is counting on a population that's shrinking. And right now, there's no technology out there that's going to fix that. So a lot of times people will say, well, what about artificial blood? Well, there is research being done on artificial blood, except the research takes 2 units of human donated blood to make 1 unit of artificial blood. So that's not going to solve our blood supply issue. So the blood supply is really like a piece of dental floss. It's very thin. So this summer, we were struggling with blood all the time. Right, our blood supply right now, blood supply is a little bit better, but it will really drop off starting this week because we had high schools that were donating all through October and early November. Now the high schools aren't going to want to donate. And guess what? All of the people over the age of 40, at least the females, which comprise about 52% of our donor population, they're running around buying their Christmas presents, decorating their house. They are not coming in to donate blood.
Okay.
So this whole challenge of getting people to donate blood, then you add in virtual work. So many people aren't going into the office anymore. So we don't have those blood drives. So connecting with the right population is very, very hard. We're trying a lot of different things. So right now we've just started a brand new scholarship program to entice high schools to have blood drives.
Awesome.
Thinking that if they can get scholarship opportunities for their kids, that will make them
Incentivize them.
hopefully,
Yeah.
want to host a blood drive, because
love it.
if you haven't donated by the time you're 30, the likelihood of you starting to donate is not very good. So we've got to get you young and then hope you'll continue to donate.
And I can't imagine running an operation that is foundationally dependent on donors. So thank you for what you do. I am amazed every time we get together. I encourage every one of you to, if you are in Johnston, hey, stop by and donate. And I bet you could get a tour with Stacy. If you were really nice.
We would give tours, absolutely. It's fun to give a tour, and it is a great building to see. You'll always learn something. I know you enjoyed your tour a lot.
Oh my gosh, it was every turn, every twist of that tour, there were things that could be applied to every organization in the state. So thank you for being the pioneer and the leader in this industry, and also in manufacturing, because what you do is manufacturing at its best. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.